Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Visit scdheck.gov for an updated list of testing sites and important information on how to protect yourself, your family, and friends from the coronavirus. SCDHEC, healthy people, healthy communities. In it together and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council, presenting Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. The City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, helping to meet the needs of small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the City of Columbia. Log on to columbiasc.net/OBO. Agape Counseling and Training Services. Call 803-779-2777 for licensed professionals of counselors and social workers helping families, engaged and married couples, and individuals of all ages gain an understanding of all aspects of their lives. If you're having a challenge coping with COVID, contact Agape Counseling and Training Services at agapects.com. And Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together. Coping with COVID, brought to you by SCDHEC. In it together, the Diabetes Advisory Council, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Center, and Palmetto Media Connections.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
Fight the spread and take a stand against coronavirus. Wear a mask in public. Stay at least 6 feet apart from others. And get tested. Join us and fight the spread. Visit scdheck.gov/COVID-19.
It's Faith Friday, and I'm Tre Tailor, and you are watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by, as you heard, SCDHEC, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Center, and Palmetto Media Connections. Wellness Wednesday is brought to you by In It Together and the Diabetes Advisory Council. Well, like I said, it is Faith Friday. This is the time where we motivate, inspire, and empower you with stories of hope and perseverance. We continue our New Year, New You series with Betty Parker. She joins us from Sharper Development Solutions. We're going to talk today about what many of you are doing right now, developing goals and finding career success in the midst of a pandemic. Betty, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We look forward to a great conversation. That's coming up next on Coping with COVID. But first, your COVID community updates. If you missed the health insurance deadline, you have more time. President Biden has reopened extended enrollment in Obamacare beginning February 15th and extended it until May 15th. This, he says, to help the 32 million Americans who are uninsured, especially in the midst of COVID. A South Carolina teen has died from Miss C. The COVID-related illness, only seen in youth, has affected about 42 young people in South Carolina since discovered in July of last year. But this is the first death in the state. Now, while most children recover from the illness, officials say parents should look for these signs. Now, along with this, if your child has trouble breathing, chest pain, or pressure that does not go away, confusion, severe stomach pain, bluish eyes, and trouble staying awake, call 911 or their physician. Johnson & Johnson have unveiled their one-shot COVID vaccine, and while not as strong as some of the two-shot vaccines, the company says theirs is 66% effective at preventing moderate to severe illness and 85% against more serious symptoms, substantially helping the dire need for more doses. Now, the company will file emergency use of the vaccine in the United States next week and hope to be able to ship 100 million doses to the United States by June. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and locations for COVID testing in and around South Carolina. Also, visit scdheck.com for not only that, for information about flu shots. You can also go to gogettested.com. Now, at that website, you can find out where a location is for testing statewide, get an appointment, and get your results in 48 hours. Also, throughout the show, scrolling on the bottom of the screen will be information about organizing a COVID screening at your event or at your neighborhood. Plus, the DHEC Care Line has information on testing, transportation, and get a test and the COVID vaccine. That's at the DHEC Care Line. SCDHEC is actually hiring 150 medical and administrative staff to help with their COVID efforts. Check the screen on how to apply by midnight this Sunday. Richland and Clarendon County paramedics are offering in-person COVID screening. If you or someone you know is immobile, call 911 for information. And COVID vaccines are also being done at Lexington Medical Center. Again, see the information on the screen. And also for veterans at the VA. Kroger pharmacies are also offering COVID vaccines. Check the screen once again for details. All of that information, again, will be scrolling at the bottom of the screen throughout the show. The South Carolina Bar Association and SC Legal Services offer a toll-free number and website for rental and mortgage assistance. And you may have heard yesterday on the show, the NAACP is launching a housing assistance program to help landlords, mortgage companies, and tenants. For more information, the Columbia branch of the NAACP, plus they need navigators to help people in need. The training is this Saturday. The City of Columbia is offering a 6-month payment plan for water bills and payment assistance up to 75%. And small businesses and nonprofits, if you need help with the PPP loan, check out a free online workshop Tuesday, February 2nd. Check the screen for information. Now, if you need help with virtual learning or working, Rashonda Pratt's YouTube channel, you've got to subscribe to that. And February 1st is the deadline to submit your application for the SC Association of Counties Scholarship. Now, graduating high school seniors can get up to $2,500 per year. Visit the website for more information. And again, February 1st is the deadline. I'm Tre Tailor, and you're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. The Tailor-Made production page on Facebook is the home of Coping with COVID. We would love for you to go over there and hit like and follow. Not only will you be able to watch Coping with COVID Wednesday through Saturday at 2 p.m., you can also get all of your COVID-related update. We're also streaming live on YouTube. I want to thank everyone that's checking us out on YouTube, all you YouTubers. Please hit the subscribe button. Now, we also have a presence on Instagram and on Twitter. So please go over there and like and follow us too. Hey, want to remind you to post and share this information out so we can get the message to the masses, because COVID has taken a toll in many ways. One being financially. Now, folk have had to reboot or reimagine their careers, even launch into entrepreneurship. Now, if you're in that category or just need or want some strategies on how to thrive, survive, and even pandemic-proof your professional life, or need someone to come into your company to help with teamwork, conflict management, employee engagement, or diversity training, Betty Parker can help. Through her Sharper Development Solutions company, Betty has a long list of clients and companies that she has motivated, inspired, and led to success. Today, we're talking about developing your goals and achieving success, career success in a pandemic. Betty, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So listen, let's talk about a couple of things, because people are going through several different types of scenarios. What do you do if you lost your job during the pandemic? What's one thing that's one scenario?
Fall down on your knees and pray.
Oh, absolutely. First, that's the first thing.
Oh my gosh. I mean, people have gone through, we know this has been quite an upheaval to people's lives, right? I mean, from every aspect, whether it's an individual who's lost their job or whether it's somebody who has had to shut down a business. We've seen businesses have to close just every aspect you can think of. So it is and has been quite a challenge for practically anyone and everyone. We're all going through, I guess, the same struggle in a sense, just in different ways.
Yeah.
And so if you've lost your job, here's a great time, I think, Tre, for us to be a little bit more reflective and introspective. Now, some people might be saying, Betty, I got to keep a roof over my head and my family's head, and we got to keep food in the fridge and that kind of thing. So I don't have time to sit and think a lot. But actually, this is the best time to do that while everybody else has slowed down to a particular place too, because I think it's a time to rethink what you were doing before and where you ultimately want to be. This is a time for regeneration. It's a time, I think, for a reexamination and just figuring out, if I was in a position before that allowed me kind of put me in a place where I am right now. Maybe that wasn't the best place for me to be. You mentioned a little bit ago about pandemic proofing your life, right? Or your job, whatever.
Yeah, your career.
Where
Yeah.
could I place myself where my value is so high that even in crises, I am still needed, And not to say that other people didn't do that. It's just that there are times when situations can hit. And this one, of course, is unprecedented. And hopefully we won't ever see anything like this again. But we have to add value to ourselves. And so in doing that, it's how you show up at work every day,
Right.
the amount of skills that you have, how you present yourself to those who have the decision-making capacity to keep you on a job or say, hey, it's time for you to go. There's so many aspects of it that you want to make it as hard as possible for a person to not want to
Need
see
you.
you leave. Yeah.
Right.
So there are people who would take full advantage of situations like this and say, okay, he or she needed to be gone anyway. So it's time to get them out of it. They've been
Yeah.
wanting to get rid of you anyway. Don't give them any reasons why, or to
Yeah.
do that.
You
Yeah,
make a good point because helping yourself happens before a situation hits.
absolutely.
That's like, if you're in an area where there's fires or storms, you gotta storm proof your house, get your storm windows and stuff like that, so that when the storm comes, you are ready, you are prepared.
Absolutely. And some of that readiness comes from skill building. I'm going back to school myself now. Just trying to get my master's, right? And so because there are other things I want to do in my life,
Right.
I'm looking down the road a piece. So as I continue to grow and develop my business and my skill level, I also have to increase my knowledge level. That's something that once you got it, people can't take that away from you.
Yeah.
So, and the more the farther you will go. I mean, it's just not just some little verbiage or adage or something that people state. It is true. So that's value add, and just being able to present yourself as one who is needed and necessary for any organization makes a difference. So I would really challenge people to stop for a minute and just think about where they are and where they ultimately want to be. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff you got to do between those two spots.
Right. Well, I want to talk about the whole bunch of stuff you got to do in between the two spots, but I do want to mention something that you said as far as going back to school. And I think us going back to school, classes, things of that sort are so important. Here's the other thing about that, because people may say, well, I don't have any money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You say what? I know what I would say. Well, let me tell you what I'd say, and let me hear what you have to say.
Go for it. Yeah.
There are free classes that are available now because of the pandemic. And I know that I was talking to Ashley Wilkerson a couple of months ago, and she's in the college world. And she said a lot of online courses are going to be little to nothing because they are encouraging people to come online because of the deficit of in-person learning.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. I did not know that. I'm taking a master's of a program and hope to have a degree in that afterwards. But I got to tell you, the only reason why I'm able to do it now is because it is 100% online. I've been needing to go through this program for quite a while. Wasn't able to kind of, make the classes on weekends and all that because I'm one of these non-traditional students. But it is so much more convenient now that it is online. So when you think about not just what tuition costs are, but just think about the other costs to you that you no longer have to pay for travel and all that kind of stuff. But it's an investment. I look at something like this as an investment in my future. So I'm very particular about where I spend my money. When you talk about investment, there's an expectation that you're going to get a return on that. So for me, even though it might cost me right now, I expect I'm going to get something back from that that's going to be far greater and going to net me a lot more than what I'm putting into it in terms of money. And there are dollars out there. So I would, most of these colleges, all of them, there's all kinds of student aid available now. So, and there are all kinds of, aid for need. And look, now we got an administration in right now that's promising to start, forgiving some of these student debts. Yeah. So I wouldn't allow that to stand in the way. If you feel that very strongly that there's additional knowledge you need in order to get where you need to go, then I would work that into part of my plan. Is that something, first of all, is it really, really necessary, or can you accomplish it without? But if it is necessary, by all means, I would encourage people, don't let the dollar stand in the way.
We're talking to Betty Parker with Sharper Development Solutions about developing your goals and achieving career success in the midst of a pandemic. Betty, we talked about what's in between figuring out what you want to do in the end game. Let's talk a little bit about what's in between that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a big planner, Trey. You've been knowing me for a while, and
Yes.
I'm all about strategy and planning, right? I mean, I've seen too often when people have had, and I'm just as guilty myself, where we've said, okay, I want to do this thing, or I'm going to do this thing, or whatever. And it just becomes an idea that floats around and it never gets done because we haven't put it on paper. We
Right.
haven't thought it through. We don't know all the steps that have to happen. And it just becomes something that it's just something we talk about. It's something that's in just kind of floating around there. So until you solidify that thing with an actual plan and know what it's going to take to get there, it's something that most likely won't get accomplished. And so
Mhm.
I'm big on people like thinking it through first, and then writing all these things down and being very deliberate and intentional around making them happen. Committing them to a timeline and getting down to the bare bones of what needs to happen. So like I said, we're at a point right now where this is an ideal time to do it because a lot of people are looking at their businesses again. They're revamping a lot of things. My business exploded this past summer, and it's still been rolling through this year, just around the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion work I've been
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
And so the big word in 2020 for us who were in business early on when COVID first arrived, and well, when we first recognized it,
It's
was
almost
pivot.
been a year.
It's
Yeah,
almost been a
March will be a
year.
year.
And so the big thing you kept hearing from business owners and business people was pivot. Everybody knew they had to do something different. You might not have to move big, but you had to move in a different direction. And you
Right.
had to do business different from the way you've done before. Well, those businesses are still in that mode. They're looking at things that they've done in the past, pre-COVID, and they're looking at where they are currently and what they're going to keep going forward and what they're going to do
Right.
different. So if you can be a part of that plan, if you are, creating some value in yourself where whichever direction they're planning on going, you can go with them. This is an ideal time to either make a career change or to start looking at how do you get into some of these organizations that's going to be ramping back up. Because I don't know, call me the eternal optimist. I feel like we are at the beginning of the end of this thing. We do see a pinhole of light. It might not be the big light, but there's
Yeah.
a pinhole of light down there. And at least we see some makings of us coming out of this thing. So this is also a great time to start thinking about the future and what it looks like for you.
Yeah, I love that you say that because some people may be thinking, okay, I've lost my job or I've been phased out. And you're just sitting there. Sometimes you can just become dumbfounded and not do anything. But I love that you say, figure out. And this was going to be my next question. Figure out what you can do to fit in to whatever the change is, and that might not be your current employer. It may be somebody else, someplace else. But what do you have? What skills, what talents, what gifts do you have that you can parlay, that you can be an integral part of whatever that change is, and then then you can be the part of the solution, so to speak. We're talking to Betty Parker. We're talking about developing your goals and achieving career success in a pandemic. She's with Sharper Development Solutions. This is what she does for a living, and we thank her so much for joining us. Mitchell Peace Joy Jen says, yes, you've got to press forward. Yeah, Mitchell, you're right. But listen, I understand that it's hard when you, as I said, maybe you've lost your job, you're in financial straits, you're concerned about your mortgage and your bills and all of that. You're not thinking straight. But this is the time more than ever. If you're a person of faith, you gotta, draw on your faith. And if you're not, well, I don't know what you believe in. If you believe in hot dogs and hamburgers, eat more of those. I don't know. But you just gotta focus. You gotta take some time to say, okay, I gotta get it together. What do I have? Where can I fit in? Get in where you fit in. Betty, how do you identify those skills, gifts, and talents to your advantage? Maybe something, that you've been doing for someone for years.
Right, yeah, and so it's about taking inventory of what you know and what you have been skilled at for a while. Sometimes we have some skills we just haven't used in a long time,
Yeah,
right? And we just have to go back and say, "Well, I used to do this thing. I enjoyed it. I've gotten sidetracked because of work. I've kind of allowed myself to fall into here recently. I'd like to go back to." Sometimes it's our first love, but we couldn't make it work at that time.
yes,
So
yes.
maybe we can revisit that. But I would highly encourage people just to kind of do some examination. I am, as you mentioned, I do a lot of corporate training and development. So in talking to a lot of people in leadership within these organizations, managers and supervisors and stuff as such, I ask them to do the same thing. Who's on your team, and what skills do they have and what could be missing? Because that helps them to generate, if there's some space to do some hiring, what are we missing? What do we need more of? And sometimes to move out some that that just don't fit the bill, right? So you never know when that opportunity will present itself to you, and you got to be ready to show yourself and present yourself to others so that they can have the confidence to say, hey, I want you to be a part of this.
Yeah,
The other part of it, Trey, is some people are just walking away from the jobs and starting their own businesses. A-
right,
you
right.
know and
And
it's little one person businesses, but they're making them happen.
yeah, and I was going to ask that. How do you decide whether you try to hang in there, or what is it? What kind of mindset do you have to have? How do you decide, okay, it's time for me to launch my own business?
Yeah, well, let me give you the reality of that thing. I am all about passion and drive and this interest in what matters to you and what makes you happy. They say do what you love and the money will follow for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right, but by the same token, let's be realistic. Let's also recognize that you got to eat and you got to
yeah,
live.
yeah.
And so, unless you are financially prepared to launch into whatever it is you're doing, if it's not making you money right now, you got to build it from scratch. You might want to stay on that job for a little bit longer while you are building your work, whatever it is, whatever business you want to do, because you still, those months and they go by so fast. The weeks and months go by fast, and those bills come on time, and they don't want to hear any excuses about what you don't have. So you'll end up putting yourself under a lot of stress if you're not fully prepared to go into business for yourself from a financial standpoint, and even to have all your ducks in a row, to know what's happening. I tell people it can take you a full year to 2 years just to plan to exit a job that you've been working on and walk right into a business you want to work, full time. And let me tell you, that business becomes, I mean, it will consume you, especially if it's something you enjoy doing, something you love, and you're trying to build that thing, you'll find yourself working far more hours than you would have on a 9 to 5.
Oh,
But the people
absolutely.
yeah, the people I found who do it and enjoy it, they don't care. It's like they do this work even if they didn't get paid for it. That's
Mhm.
how strongly they feel about it. But they are the ones that also make it successful for them.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe right about now, if someone was maybe in banking or was a CPA or accounting or something like that, particularly now since we are in the midst of tax season, many people do need some help kind of figuring out their
Mhm.
finances. At least that particular um, skill set may be able to get some freelance stuff, launch out into
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. Is that doable? Do you
Oh
think?
yeah, yeah, and we need to look at our
Yeah,
hobbies and our interests, things that we're doing already, but can we monetize that? So
right.
we saw in at the beginning of the pandemic, there are people who can sew, right? They can put together
Oh
some
my
nice.
God, yeah, those masks.
Yeah, and then they just started doing masks and just churning them out, churning them out, churning them out. But these are people who can just sew. I mean, they can design clothes. They can do really good work, right? We saw people just move out of what was their comfort zone, with what they were used to, and they saw a need. Generally, businesses and products and services get created because of a lack, because there's a gap somewhere. And oh, how we kick ourselves when we hear, something we sat down a few years ago and said, man, if only somebody would make something that does, whatever it
Right,
is.
right.
And surely enough, that person comes with it. We're like, man, I wish I had jumped on that when I thought about it, right? So yeah, there are things that we need. Our world is ever changing. The needs
Yeah.
increase, and so for those who are entrepreneurial and those who are inventive,
Mhm.
and who want to step up and say, hey, I'm going to try to make this thing work, they can find huge success in filling in those gaps that we're missing as consumers.
This is Betty Parker. She's with Sharper Development Solutions. We're talking about developing goals and achieving career success in a pandemic. Let's talk about some goals, Betty. You talked a little bit about goal setting. How do you create realistic ones, and how do you develop a timeline to attain those goals?
Yes, I'm gonna go old school. And anybody who has ever done training and development knows all about SMART goals.
Right.
So I live by those. I kind of modify them a little bit too, and I do smarter goals. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But yeah, it's just about making sure you're clear about what you want. I have it now, and then I want to speak to the people who think too hard and too long too, because there are people who are analytical thinkers and they do know what they want, but they can spend so much time trying to figure it out and define it so clearly that they'll be 2 years in just trying to figure out what it is they want to do. So
Yeah.
you have to, it's cool if you can find someone who can be a mentor or a coach. Who you can bounce your ideas off of and talk
Yeah.
through some things, right? So, but I would just try to think about, what it is I really want to do. And this is for whether you want to go into business for yourself or whether you want to just do a new career or,
Right.
get back into the workforce. But create some real specific and strategic goals for yourself. So those SMART goals they're specific. So you're gonna, and you please write all this stuff down. They're gonna be very specific goals around what you want to do. Set some, in this year, I want to accomplish X, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then they have to be measurable. So if you do this thing, can you achieve, can you measure the achievement of it? Are there different milestones along the way? Is it going to be something long-term or short-term that has to happen? But what can I put in place to know if it's working, if I'm
Right.
accomplishing what I'm shooting out for? A is attainable and achievable. Some people say achievable, but can I really reach this? It's great to have all this great imagination and whatever, but is what you're setting up for yourself something you can really hit? And then is it realistic or relevant? Yeah. I mean, it's good to say, I want to go and start, I want to start a bakery. Okay. Right. All right. So I'm going to go and start this bakery, but can I really bake? Do I want to put in the time, the effort, and the energy to do this? Are my cakes good?
I know that's
Am I
right.
really skilled at this? Right. And don't take your own word for it. Ask somebody else, because you might be biased.
Right.
A lot of things we think we can do, we may not be able to. So just being, realistic about it. And then is it time bound? So, you got to come up with a timeline. I want to accomplish this task by this time and this task by that time. And I want to have all of this completed in the next 6 months or the next year. Or if we're in this predicament till December, what else do I need to do? Just making sure you have it established in a very concrete and specific way. I mentioned smarter goals though,
Yeah.
and sometimes, so I add an E and an R, and because I work a lot with corporate people, I add the E, which is ethical, because a lot of people will step over other people. They will try to skirt the system. They'll try to work the system. I mean, they'll do a lot of things that are not, on the up and up. And so I try to get people to think about how to do things the right way. And then is it recorded? And so, or reviewed. So recorded basically means it needs to be written down. And are you going back and looking at that plan over and over again? It's your guide. It's what's going to keep you focused and on point to actually achieve whatever it is you're working toward. And so I tell people, live with that plan, especially if you're going to put a lot of work in it to put it together. Live with that plan, stick on that thing every day, and see how far you've gotten in it.
Right. Betty Parker is with us. She is with Sharper Development Solutions, and we're talking about goals, setting goals and achieving career success in the midst of a pandemic. I want to thank everybody for watching. Mitchell Peace Joy Jan Mary Jones Wilson says that she's the analytical thinker. She said she is an analytical thinker. I am too. I'm an overthinker. People say I overthink. I am a big overthinker.
Uh-huh. Do you think you're a big overthinker?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think.
Yeah, we do that. And so we get that whole paralysis by analysis thing. So yeah, time is passing us up and we're still sitting.
I'm still thinking. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still thinking about it. Yeah.
But the other side of that, Trey, are the people who are moving too fast too.
Thank you, Mary. It's the other people. It's not us.
Yeah, there's some of us that you just got to get somebody to pull you back a little bit because you're just rolling with it, you know?
Yeah, well,
So,
that's true. And and you mentioned the thing about that is we really have to have people in our lives that can not only balance us but be truthful to us, be honest with us,
mhm,
and help us somebody to bounce things off of. That's
mhm.
so important. That's so important.
Yep.
And particularly, as we're talking about career goals, like you said, get a business mentor. Get a business mentor. Get someone who is been where you want to go or
Mhm.
is where you want to go,
Yep. And
because they can help you with that.
I can't speak enough, Trey, about people really shaping who they are in the workplace because it is so easy for you to get overlooked. Some people are so far in the background that they become invisible. And I speak a lot to women leaders in this way. There are a lot of people in
Yes,
leadership
yes,
positions,
yes, yes.
and we don't want to toot our own horns. We feel like that's being
You're right.
braggadocious or
You're
arrogant,
right.
right? And I'm
Oh,
like, you're sitting back
we
here.
have a bad problem with that as women.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, but we got men who are very confident. They speak up, and next thing you know, the idea you were thinking on, he's already spoken it. He's getting the credit
Yeah,
for it,
yeah.
and you're basically invisible in the room. So we have to make sure that we are showing our value, and that's even if you're not in a leadership position. When you go on anybody's job any day of the week, you got to show up and show up in
Hmm.
ways that people take notice. Even if you're not speaking it, you're living it, you're showing it. And I'm going to go back to, because in that, when there are opportunities available, you want people who's not just going to mentor you, but also be your sponsor and say, hey, Trey does a fantastic job. I'm in a position of influence,
Right,
and
right,
I see you,
right.
and I know you do a fantastic job, and I want to talk you up to other people in my organization.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Mhm.
Betty Parker with Sharper Development Solutions joins us. We're talking about developing goals and achieving career success in the midst of a pandemic. And want to thank everybody for joining us today. Want you to please post and share so we can get this message to the masses. Mary says that's so true. Yeah, you're right. I was just thinking when you were saying that men can have less education, um, less
Okay.
qualifications, and don't have a problem pumping them up, pumping themselves up. But
Mhm.
we, and I'm there. I'm guilty. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something, then we're gonna take a break and come back. I was
Mhm.
telling Tamika the other day. I remember you and Tamika and I were on a panel with Raquel a couple of years
Mhm.
ago before the pandemic,
Mhm.
and I think the conversation came up about what do you do if you have doubts or fears or whatever? Both you and Tamika said, "Oh, I don't have." And I was like, "But I do." I am very clear with I battle with insecurity and not anxiety, but insecurity and just am I good enough? Am I this? Am I that? I battle with that.
Mhm.
I mean, really. So I told Tamika just the other day, I reminded her that. I said, you and Betty were like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm like,
And let me say
what
this,
I do.
it's not that we don't have insecurities or we doubt ourselves here and there. Everybody does. I think everybody does. It's just that some people will stop, in the midst of
Right.
and say, I can't do this. While the
Right.
rest of us like, I'm not sure, but we just keep pressing,
Well, I
right?
keep going. I keep
Yeah.
going. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna keep it. But that's one thing I can say. I don't
Mhm.
let it cripple me. I
Good.
keep going. I have my little pity party, and then I just keep moving. Because somewhere in there, Betty, and maybe it's faith, and maybe it has to do with having a belief system. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Mhm.
Or it's once a month on Agape Counseling and Training, Cheryl Williams couch. I know it,
Yeah. Hey. Get
girl.
you some of that too.
Got you some counseling.
Get you some of that
I'm a
therapy.
big proponent of therapy. And you know what? Real
Absolutely.
talk, people have gone through some things in this last 12 months
Huh.
that have warranted and have challenged their
Mhm.
mental health or
Oh
have
yeah.
propelled what was a little bit of mental health issue, and it's huge now. And
Uh-huh.
I am a big proponent of get you the help you need. That doesn't mean you're crazy. I think you're crazy if you don't get the
If you
help.
don't, right?
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
sometimes you just need somebody to talk to that can see, and just like we were talking about, that can see things from a different perspective. So
Mhm.
I'm a big
Absolutely.
proponent of that. Mitchell Peace Joy Jen says, I do a wonderful job. Thank you, Mitchell. I appreciate that. I do. I really do. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that God has blessed me with. Betty Parker joins us. She's with Sharper Development Solutions. When we come back, more career strategies with Betty Parker. And if you have a company or a business, she does excellent work with training, diversity, employee management, and things like that. So we'll talk about that and more coming up next on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor.
Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Visit scdheck.gov for an updated list of testing sites and important information on how to protect yourself, your family, and friends from the coronavirus. SCDHEC, healthy people, healthy communities. In it together and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council, presenting Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. The City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, helping to meet the needs of small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the City of Columbia. Log on to columbiasc.net/OBO. Agape Counseling and Training Services. Call 803-779-2777 for licensed professionals of counselors and social workers helping families, engaged and married couples, and individuals of all ages gain an understanding of all aspects of their lives. If you're having a challenge coping with COVID, contact Agape Counseling and Training Services at agapects.com. And Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together. Coping with COVID, brought to you by SCDHEC. In it together, the Diabetes Advisory Council, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Center, and Palmetto Media Connections.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
People will be able to look 100 years from now. They will know how we got over. This makes it even more important that we shine this light.
Part of it also wasn't the fact that we couldn't have the physical graduation, but I also couldn't celebrate with my family out of town.
For me, I feel like this is a new normal. This is not going away anytime soon, I don't think.
Anything that's happened before can happen again. And the same thing is at play with this virus.
We are no longer in a building, and we've talked about church being, with us, in us.
Have you traveled abroad late in the past 6 months? We were trying to trace it back as early as November.
This flu season arrives during the COVID-19 pandemic. Groups at risk for serious illness from COVID-19 and flu are similar, but complications from flu are much higher in young children. Everyone over 6 months of age should get a flu shot to help prevent more illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths in South Carolina.
The flu is not just a cold. Each year, many South Carolinians are hospitalized from the flu and even die.
Getting the flu vaccine is the best protection against the flu for everyone in your family.
The flu vaccine is safe, effective, and does not cause the flu.
You can make a difference this flu season by protecting yourself from the flu.
It's important that I protect my baby.
It's important that we protect our families.
It's important that we protect our schools.
And our students.
It's important.
It's important.
It's important.
It's important that we protect our state.
Talk to your healthcare provider, pharmacist, or health department about the flu vaccine today.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, parents have kept their children home to keep them safe. As a result, pediatric visits and vaccinations have been missed. Although there is no vaccine yet for COVID-19, there are vaccines available to prevent other serious illnesses. Check your child's records and schedule an appointment with their provider. The time is right to bring your child's vaccinations up to date. Call your doctor to schedule a vaccination appointment. Visit scdheck.gov/vaccines for more information on the importance of childhood vaccines.
Hey there, I'm Tre Tailor, and you are watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. Is brought to you by SCDHEC, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Centers, and also Palmetto Media Connections. Listen, please post and share this information out so we can get the message to the masses, because this is such great information that Betty Parker with Sharper Development Solutions is sharing today, because many people are going through career challenges. I also want to remind you to check the scroll at the bottom of the screen, because throughout the show, we will be showing you information on COVID testing, vaccine information, and more. Betty Jones Betty Parker. I don't know if Betty Jones is. Betty Parker rejoins us. Her company, Sharper Development Solutions, helps individuals and companies develop into being effective, intentional, and as good as they can be. We continue our conversation about developing goals and achieving career success in a pandemic. Betty, before we left, we were talking about making sure that we are mentally and physically fit. And I wanted to mention Mary Jones Wilson says we check on our physical health every year with our doctor. Mental health checks are great too. Not only they're great, Mary, you're right. They are essential. They are important because so many times we go through things like this pandemic, like a death. And this, so many things have changed for us physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. We can't grieve the way we usually do. We're all looking at each other side eye out of our mask because we don't know who has what, So it's been a big impact on folks. And people oftentimes don't even recognize, why am I feeling this way? Why am I acting that way? So you got to check yourself and make sure that you're okay. Mitchell Peace Joy Jen says self-care is needed. And that is part of self-care. You're absolutely right. Even sometimes just looking, again, I am guilty with a 2 and a 4-year-old, just being able to take a daggone bath by yourself, a relaxing bath.
Yeah.
You need that time for yourself.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm finding, Trey, and I'm doing a lot of coaching, individual coaching with managers and supervisors. And even in the training classes that I do online, one of the first things I do is check in with everybody who's online with me, and I ask them how they're doing.
How you doing?
And I continuously and consistently hear anxious, overwhelmed, burned out, uncertain about the future, stressed, whatever. So everybody's got this real emotional aspect of this, dealing with this pandemic. You're like playing Russian roulette, just go to the grocery store, right? The simplest things. I'm starting to know more people who have had the virus than those who haven't yet had it. So it's a reality, and we have to learn how to deal with that. So I also work with a lot of people in healthcare, and I was coaching a nurse just today, and one of the things he was telling me was his biggest struggle is burnout. Not only is he feeling burned out, but trying to keep the people under him from feeling the same way. So it's hard to pour into somebody else when you yourself are empty,
That's right. Yeah. So you're right. We've got to be able, and as it pertains to your career, you've got to be kind of on the right, in the right mindset even focus on that. To focus on it and achieve or develop, as you say, attainable, realistic goals, and then carry them out. So this is all health, mind, body, spirit thing is all connected. It's all connected.
That can be part of your goals for 2021 to be
get your mind right.
Get your mind right, to be better connected with self, to practice a little bit of mindfulness and figure out how you're going to work into the grand scheme of everything else that you have to do. How do you take care of you? Because we always put ourselves on the back burner, and we don't realize how bad off we are until, something kind of implodes, right?
Yeah.
So I tell people, even if it's as simple as, I when I go in my office, there's a big window, and I will sit at my desk, and before I do anything else, I got my Bible open, and I am staring out that window, and I'm trying not to think of anything. Mindfulness is about being present. So I'm paying attention to the blueness of the sky, or if it has clouds, I'm looking at that bird that just flew by, or that plane that just went over, or the tree that's moving, or whatever, but I'm only into that moment. I don't want to think about what I got to do coming up, or what kind of meeting is going to happen, or who's going to act crazy today, or anything of that sort. I am trying to be in the moment, and it centers me, and it gets me ready to read that word, which encourages me too, So you got to factor that into, and I had to be very intentional about that. So I had to say, when I get up in the morning, this is how I'm going to start my day. And I want to do this as consistently as possible every day. Because here's the deal. If I can start with my anxiety level kind of like here, all right, then there's more space for when the crazy stuff starts pouring in, and it keeps filling up. If I'm already up here in anxiety, there's not a whole lot of extra room. So when stuff starts going crazy in the daytime from the very beginning, I might just kind of explode by like 9 a.m. in the day.
I know what you mean.
Because I haven't gotten rid of all of the extra stuff, that weighs me down and keeps me on edge. So, you got to find space to do that. It's really important. People think I don't want to say people think it's not important, because I'm hearing more and more from folks that they're just feeling, they're feeling the weight of this pandemic.
Yeah, you're right. Betty Parker joins us from Sharper Development Solutions. Betty, you do a lot of, you mentioned this, that train and talk to and coach a lot of people in management, in leadership, and you also do some things with companies. Tell us a little bit about that as we look at your website.
Sure. Yeah. So most of what I do is classroom instruction, and of course, we're not in a class anymore, so a lot of it's virtual now. But my focus is leadership development. So I go into organizations and I help them to develop those who are on their management team. And I like to start as high up in that organization as I can. So if I can get where the CEO is and everybody in that so-called C-suite, because generally they're the ones who make a lot of the decisions that impact everybody else, as you cascade down that organization.
Yeah.
But we just look at things like communications, how to give and receive feedback. How do we talk to each other with respect? How are we
Yeah.
leading other people? Are we self-aware? And are we aware of the people on our teams? And how do we adapt to those folks? And how do we build collaboration and cohesion among teammates? And how do we deal with conflict when it arises? How do we engage our employees and make them feel like they're valued here at work? And all of those things that managers and supervisors need to know how to do well. So that comes in the form of, like I said, instruction in class or online, and then also in individual or group coaching.
Right. And as you say, that's important because it goes from the top on down.
Absolutely. It's frustrating to me as one who comes in and tries to help them make change. I can't do anything. I'm just there to offer the instruction and the guidance. But I want to arm them with what they need to make things happen. And so that's all fine and dandy. But if I'm talking to the folks in the middle of the organization and they are restricted in what they can accomplish, then to me, a company's wasting their money. That's why I like to kind of start at the top to say, look, everything starts with you. I need to get your full buy-in that whatever's going on in your organization, you're willing to look at it closely and make whatever changes are necessary. Because a lot of the people in the middle are locked in. They're like, hey, Betty, I get it, but I got these handcuffs on. They just only allow me to do so much, or they're not listening, to us. So it has to start at the top. And I love that work. It's been really rewarding.
The website is thesharpersolution.com, thesharpersolution.com. If you want more information about the training that Betty does for corporations and even for individuals in leadership. And again, go to thesharpersolution.com. As we wrap up today, Betty, anything else you can share with us as far as, kind of getting your career on track for 2021 after this pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm just about forward looking, and I believe that we are going to come to an end in this thing at some point, hopefully this year, sooner rather than later. Who knows? But just kind of take inventory of what you have dealt with so far and think about where you want to be when all of this is said and done. Some people don't want to go back pre-COVID. Things weren't that great then, right? And people talked about 2020 being, this monster year, and yes, it was. But 2020 is over. And so now we're into 2021. Are we going to have more of the same? Or can you look back and say, okay, I've learned some valuable lessons from that. And if I had to live that year all over again, here's what I would do differently, right? And then what does that differently look like? What can you start doing now or preparing to do now for when we come out of all of this and have your life be the way you need and want it to be, at least on that path to that direction. So there are people who I know who have said, look, there's some things that we didn't think we could do. People have been asking for it, but we said, no, that's not in the budget or it'll never work. And they were forced into it during the pandemic. Now they realize it is very feasible. It's much more efficient, and they're going to keep it as part of how they do things going forward. So think about that. What'd you learn from this year that you thought you couldn't have happen? Or, and I'll get way to that granular level. Spending. You were talking about money earlier. So if I lose my job, but I've learned, or if I've lost my job and I've learned to live off a minimal amount, I could have been doing that all along and been putting some of that money aside. So when crazy stuff like this happens, I won't find myself in a lurch. I have, some money set aside for times like this, because this could easily happen again. We have no guarantees we won't face this again, So how much more prepared are you going to be should the next situation occur?
Yeah, we're talking to Betty Parker with Sharper Development Solutions. If we can get the information up again, her website is sharpersolutions.com. And we'd like to see her contact information again, if we can get that information up again. And if you want more information about what she offers, please contact her at the numbers and our websites and email addresses. And of course, her social media information and 803-622-4511 and Betty at thesharpersolution.com. Betty Parker, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your insight
My
and for your
pleasure.
information and for all that you do. Tasha Matthews Boone says, wonderful job, ladies. 2020 taught us a lot and we're still learning. And yes, the end of the pandemic will come. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Boone. Thank
Yep.
you so much. Yeah, it'll come. When? We don't know.
Hey, we got keeping them fingers crossed.
That's right. That's right. Betty Parker, y'all. Thank you so much, Betty. We appreciate you joining
Thank
us.
you, Trey. It was a pleasure. I'm glad to have been here, and I hope I helped somebody today.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, if nobody else, me, girl, you help me.
And
All
that'll
right.
do it for me.
All right, Betty. Thank you again. Thank you
You're
again.
welcome. All right.
Again, Betty Parker with Sharper Development Solutions. Again, you can check out her website and that's right there on the screen. And all of her contact information is on the screen. Please, please, please contact her, or if you or someone you know need some information. Ron Harvey says, great discussion today. Thank you so much, Ron, for watching Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Listen, if you have a story or initiative that could help someone cope with COVID, please go to the Tailor Made Production page on Facebook and inbox me. I would love to talk to you about spotlighting you or someone you know or your initiative. Now, if you have a product or service that can help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwittretailor@gmail.com. That information should be scrolling at the bottom of the screen. And we'd love to talk to you about being a proud sponsor, just like SCDHEC, In It Together SC, the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina, Palmetto Media Connections, and also Agape Counseling and Training Center. Now, coming up next Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, In It Together SC and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council present every Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. And February is National Heart Health Month. Did you know that heart disease is the #1 killer of women? That's right, ladies. Well, we're going to talk about heart health next Wednesday on Coping with COVID. Thursday, it's Girl Scout cookie time. And the new CEO of the Girl Scouts is going to join us and tell us about the innovative ways they're going to get those delicious treats to us this year. And also the new chair of the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. We're going to talk to her next. And then Faith Friday, 1 week from today, LaShonda Pratt left her good job at the TV station and branched out on her own. We're going to talk about her journey, her fears, her faith, and how you can utilize some of the things she did for your success. That's coming up next Faith Friday on Coping with COVID. As always, I leave you with a reading from Jesus Calling, and today is January 29th. And Jesus says, keep your focus on me. I have gifted you with amazing freedom, including the ability to choose the focal point of your mind. You have control over your mind. Only the crown of my creation has such remarkable capability. This is a sign of being made in my image. That's good stuff, y'all. Let the goal of this day be to bring every thought captive to me. Whenever your mind wanders, lasso those thoughts and bring them into my presence. In my radiant light, anxious thoughts shrink and shrivel away. Judgmental thoughts are unmasked as you bask in my unconditional love. Confused ideas are untangled while you rest in the simplicity of my peace. I will guard you and keep you in constant peace as you focus your mind on me. That reminds me of that song was that Walter Hawkins, God will keep you in perfect peace? That was a good one. Hey, y'all, thank you so much for joining us again today on Coping with COVID. Until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. I hope that you stay safe, stay well, and please wear your mask. over your nose and under your chin. See you later.
Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Visit scdheck.gov for an updated list of testing sites and important information on how to protect yourself, your family, and friends from the coronavirus. SCDHEC, healthy people, healthy communities. In it together and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council, presenting Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. The City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, helping to meet the needs of small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the City of Columbia. Log on to columbiasc.net/OBO. Agape Counseling and Training Services. Call 803-779-2777 for licensed professionals of counselors and social workers helping families, engaged and married couples, and individuals of all ages gain an understanding of all aspects of their lives. If you're having a challenge coping with COVID, contact Agape Counseling and Training Services at agapects.com. And Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together. Coping with COVID, brought to you by SCDHEC. In it together, the Diabetes Advisory Council, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Center, and Palmetto Media Connections.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.